Chapter 10. Gay go up and gay go down. There were two sets of footsteps, and one of them belonged to Madame Mumblechook. Mary heard her talking, then a man's voice answering her. She ran to the door of the strong room, and stood there, listening. Perhaps they were not coming here. Perhaps the voices would go straight past the laboratory's door. They stopped just outside it. A most successful experiment, Dr. D, Madam was saying, and well worth staying late for. I believe we may congratulate ourselves. The doorknob turned. Mary whisked back into the strong room and pulled the massive door shut behind her. It closed quietly, with a faint gasp of air. She could hear nothing now. All round her the creatures were silent, save for the faint scratching of their feet on the floor of the cages, and their soft, hurried breathing. The air was dead. Mary heard her own heart as if it were footsteps. They had spoken of an experiment. Perhaps they just wanted something from the lab. Perhaps they would not come in here. She heard the lock of the strong room door turn over with a smooth click. When Madame Mumblechook and Dr. D came into the strong room, Mary was at the far end of it, crouched on the floor in the darkness behind the last bay of cages. In here, Madame was saying, and that will do for tonight, I think. We can perhaps continue tomorrow, man. Certainly, said Dr. D. I admit to finding it a challenge, a real challenge, a more difficult subject even than the grey, wouldn't you agree? Indeed. But how satisfactory to be able to check those results with this one, and so soon. There was a sound of something being laid down. There. Quite a difference, isn't there? I don't think he'll be readily recognized now, even if she decides to be difficult about it. All cats are grey in the dark, don't they say? Said Dr. D, and laughed. Ah, it's awake now. All is well. There was a moment, I admit to you, dear ma'am, when I thought I might have made the mixture too strong, but I venture to suggest that we may even be on the verge of discovering one of the classic formulae. I would not put it any less strongly, however. I suggest we leave the creature in the lab cage overnight until, naughty. Something had hissed, but not like a cat, like a snake, thought Mary. Madame Mumblechook laughed, and Dr. D said complacently, he'll learn. And now, dear madam, I had better be on my way. Come to my office first, said Madame Mumblechook. One for the road. It's a wild night now, from the sound of the wind. Your broomstick is reliable, totally. Straight to its stable, and never a swerve to right or left. It's the only way it knows, said Dr. D. After you, dear madam. They were going. Mary held her breath. She had the impression that all the creatures in the cages held theirs. The great door whooshed shut on its cushion of air. Silence settled. She tiptoed out into the lamplight to see what Madame had brought. In a very small, cage made of bright, common-looking metal, a cage no bigger than a large mousetrap, sat a frog. It had a hunched back, protruding eyes, and a spotted skin. It was sitting up on its enormous haunches, and its forelegs were too short. They were just little curled claws, held tightly into its chest. When it saw Mary, it hitched and shuffled itself forward on its haunches towards the bars, and tried to reach her with the tiny, useless paws. An experiment, they had said, a difficult subject. He'll learn, they had said, and laughed. Mary put a finger through the bars, and the little paws fastened round it. She saw how the lamplight ran over the freckled skin like silk, how the powerful frog muscles bunched and glimmered, how the bulbous eyes shone. Tib, she whispered. My pretty Tib. I know it's you. You'd be beautiful, whatever they did to you. And I think I'm beginning to understand. The grey they talked about, that was your brother Gib, wasn't it? He must be here too somewhere. If I get you out, you can show me which he is, and we'll take him too. Keep still, now, and let go my finger. I've got to find the master spell. For of course the lock spell by itself would be useless. She must undo the transformation as well. She opened the book at the master spell. The red lines, with their warning stars, seemed to quiver in the lamplight. It will come back upon the user, to his dire affliction. Beware, and say me not save in sore need. Well, this was sore need, and if it came back upon her, that was just too bad. It was already more than bad for Tib and his brother, and for these countless other creatures whom she wished so desperately that she could help as well. She took a breath. The massive door was tightly shut. There was no need to whisper. She raised her voice to its normal pitch, and spoke quickly and clearly. There were 6 lines of it, and it is not possible to quote it here, because never after this night was Mary able to remember a word of it, but it was a simple, gay little rhyme, and it ended on a phrase that might have been but wasn't the dancing ring of days, ring of days, finished Mary, strongly. That did it. Everything happened at once, with a clicking and a cracking like a million billion nuts popping under the feet of 100 elephants. The locks of the cages, all the cages, flew open. The cupboard door fell off its hinges, and the glass frog rolled out as the books and papers on the shelves whisked away to Ch10. The strong room door itself swung wide and stood, and out of every cage the creatures jumped, flapped, crept, shuffled, clawed their way, till they swarmed all round Mary's feet on the ground. Then suddenly, the dim lamp swelled and flashed and sparkled, and the dead air of the strong room went whirling and whistling through the bars of the empty cages, and with it, instead of the grunting breaths and shuffling claws of the unhappy, stunted creatures on the floor, came the sound of wings and dancing hoofs. Under Mary's eyes a lame hedgehog stretched and grew and became a young deer, dappled and big-eyed, and supple as willow. A shuffling pangolin swept into the air with the knife wings and scarlet throat of a swallow. The glass frog, rolling to her feet, melted into the steely velvet of a beautiful smoke-grey cat. Then all round her were wings and the joyous cries of birds, and the light-flecked coats and tossing antlers of deer. And from the little metal cage with its burst lock leaped Tib, eyes wide and brilliant, and landed on Mary's left shoulder, as the grey cat swarmed up her other arm to anchor every claw in the collar of her coat. For a few shocked and deafened seconds Mary could not move. The sudden flashing magic, the appalling noise, seemed to split the night. Then she shouted, "Run, everyone, this way," and tore out through the strong room door and across the lab. Here too was chaos. Tubes and retorts burst with cracks and flashes, and liquid ran down red, green, and purple, so that the deer's hoofs splashed colored spray shoulder high as they galloped through. The clock weights dropped to the floor, became mice, and vanished down the nearest crevice, closely followed by the mice from the burst cage on the bench. The clock springs, released screaming, whipped up in great coils, whirled round and round 3 times, then smashed in a whirring tangle of metal. "Hic," said the clock, and stopped. The furnace exploded. The lab door stood wide. Mary, the book in her hand and the cats on her shoulders, dived through it and, with the air alive with birds and with a score of deer racing beside her, ran down the long corridor to the front door. It was open too, but so was the door of Madame's office, and in that doorway, side by side, Madame Mumblechook and Dr. D stood transfixed and furious. Then together, they leaped into action. Dr. D whirled his wand of power up, and yelled, "Stop! I bid you stop!" And Madame Mumblechook ran to slam the front door. But nobody stopped, or even paused. Dr. D was waving his wand and shouting still, but his voice could not be heard for the noise of wings and hoofs and the excited calling of the animals and birds. Tib, on Mary's left shoulder, was yelling like a demon, and on her right, the grey cat answered. The noise was dreadful, and whether it simply drowned the wizard's voice, or whether the master spell still held, Madame and the doctor were powerless. The front door sprang open against the witch's hands, so violently that she was flung back against the wall, and then the herd of deer, with Mary in their midst and the flock of birds sweeping overhead, ran clean over the wizard, knocking him, wand and all, flat to the floor. Then they were all racing anyhow down the wide steps and out in the fresh, free night. The deer fled on, over the grassland, under the tree's shadow. Mary saw them reach the wall, and over it in the windy starlight they went like a lifting wave. The birds shot high into the starlit air, screaming with joy. Mary stumbled down the last step, the cats clinging like goosegrass, and ran for the dark corner where she had left her little broomstick. It must have come to meet her. She almost fell over it, half propped against the stone griffin at the foot of the steps. She leaped astride it, clapped it with her hand, and shouted, "Home! Straight home!" It jumped into the air. As she soared over the trees, gaining height, She saw below her the last wave of deer leap the park wall and scud away into the dark woods. All around, the treetops were filled with birds, singing as if it were midday. Then woodland, birdsong, and the scent of the trees dropped away from her, and there was nothing but the flying starlight and the ecstatic shrilling of the two cats at her ears. It seemed a much quicker ride than usual. The broomstick slowed, swooped down through a swirl of windy cloud, then coasted to a smooth landing on grass. Mary dismounted stiffly. The cats leaped down off her shoulders, but, to her surprise, stayed close beside her feet, and even in the fitful light of the cloud-mantled stars she could see the arch of their backs, and the stiffness of their tails. They seemed to be staring at the house. Mary turned to see what was scaring them so. Then she, too, stiffened and stood staring. And she knew that if she, like the cats, had had a tail, it would have been sticking straight up like theirs, and fluffy as a bottle brush. It was the wrong house. She picked up the broomstick. Yes, it was the wrong broomstick too. Her own little broomstick had, after all, stayed exactly where she had bidden it. And there had only been one other visitor to Endor College that night, straight to its stable, and never a swerve to right or left, Dr. D had said. And this was where it had brought her. Mary stood there on Dr. D's front lawn, holding Dr. D's broomstick, and staring at the front of Dr. D's house with horror. The cat spat, sprang away, and vanished into the shadows. Someone jumped out of the bushes behind her. A voice said, gruffly and threateningly, "So it was you, you rotten witch. Now I've got you, and you'd better do as I say."